Today, we are going to learn how to adjust levels. And levels are really important because they talk about how bright or dark our image is. And images can sometimes be a little flat. And that is because they don't have a high range of contrast in them. The dark parts of an image aren't super dark, the bright parts aren't super bright. And by adjusting these, and creating more contrast, our image can really pop, which is very useful. So what we're going to do is first make sure we're all in the same layout. So go up to Window, Workspace, and make sure you're in the photography layout. That way yours looks like mine. If you are in the photography layout and it still doesn't look like mine, you can go to the same location and just hit Reset Photography, and it'll take you back to the settings that you see here. I've already opened my image, and what I want to do is go over and make sure my adjustment tab is active so I can see my adjustment options. Here's my photo. And in order to adjust levels, I'm going to the second icon in over here on my adjustment tab. If you hover on it, it'll always tell you what it does in case you forget. Now this creates what's called an adjustment layer. You'll see it pops up as a second layer down in the layer tab. And this is really nice because our photo just stays as is. And this is a series of changes we're going to make to that photo. So if later we hate it, we can still get rid of it and get back to our original photo. It's not actually changing the photo. What I can see here is a graph of my levels. Across the bottom, it's showing me how bright or dark my image is. This would be the dark end of the graph, and this is the bright end of the graph. And going up and down is telling me how many of my pixels fit into a particular range. The three triangles that you see below are adjustable. The first one is your shadows. The middle one is your midtones. And this final one is called your highlights. What I can tell right off the bat from my image is it doesn't have much contrast. Almost all of my pixels fall right here in the very, very middle of the graph, meaning they're not super dark or super bright, and that's why there's not a lot of contrast in the image. So what levels adjustments let me do is to make the dark ends of my image darker, the bright ends of my image brighter, and then I can sort of adjust in between. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to my shadows triangle and start dragging it up. And what you'll see is the darkest part of my image starts to get darker. And what I'm really aiming for is the bottom end of this graph to get down to this, meaning the things that are dark really are getting to the bottom end, and they're starting to feel like a really rich dark color rather than sort of a meh color. Then I'm going to go up to the bright end of my image and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to bring it up so that the bright end kind of reaches the bright end of the graph. And then I'm going to go to my midtones and adjust it as I see fit. So I'm going to move it into the middle, kind of move it around a little bit until I have something that I really like. Now, you can kind of see here, this graph is showing me that I've made some changes to it. That kind of will move around as you go. It shows you what it's doing to the colors. Down here on the bottom of the Properties tab, you'll see an eyeball. That'll let you see what it looks like without the adjustment. So if I click this eyeball, that's my original image without the adjustment. And that's my image with the adjustment. It's really different. You can see that it really made things pop in my image by increasing that contrast. To make this panel go away, I can click right here, or I can click these two little arrows and it'll pop it back in. And again, down here, I have the two different layers. Here's my original image and here's my levels. You'll see the eyeballs there as well, so I can turn that off to see what it looks like without the levels adjustment, or I can turn it back on to see if I like it. If you want to go back and adjust it more, the key thing is to open the same layer, this one that we just created. What I will do to do that is I can just double click right here on the icon and it'll pop that properties tab back up, and I could make further adjustments if I wanted to. And then just pop it back in. What you do not want to do is go back up here. Every time you hit this, it makes a new layer and you end up with all these crazy layers and you won't remember which layer is the one that you adjusted. And if you start messing with different ones, it can start to degrade your image somewhat. So you don't want to do that. To do undo, you always can go back to your history tab and step back in time to undo what you did. And again, just work off this one layer. So double click, make your changes, and go back. And there you have it. You have created a much better image. If your image was taken on a beautifully sunny day and you already had this look to it because the light looked great, you may not need to adjust it. This levels adjustments fix trouble where your image just doesn't have a lot of contrast. Not all images need it, so use it when it's helpful, and it'll make a big difference on your images.